The great ships of the Varalian Confederacy moved slowly through space. For 12,000 years, these crystal-like vessels had ruled the stars. They found planets, claimed them, and either took over the people living there or put them in special areas called reservations. Admiral Zex Terra stood on the bridge of her ship, the *Boundless Horizon*. Her blue skin shimmered in the dim light as she looked at the view screen. She had seen hundreds of planets in her long life, but the report from her scouts made her 4 hearts beat faster. "Admiral, you need to see this," said her first officer, his voice shaking. The screen showed images from the 3rd planet of a yellow star. The planet was blue and green, with white clouds swirling across its surface. It looked like many life-bearing worlds they had found before. But what made Zex Terra's breath catch was what the scouts had found on the surface. Buildings, tall, square buildings made of metal and stone, still standing after what their sensors said was millions of years. Some structures reached high into the sky, their tops hidden by clouds. "Impossible," Zex Terra whispered. "No buildings could last so long." Even stranger were the energy readings coming from deep under the ground. Something was still working down there, still running after all this time. "We need to investigate," she said. "Prepare a landing party." Greg Sullivan heard the news as he ate lunch in the ship's dining area. As the only human liaison officer on the Varalian flagship, other crew members often avoided him. Humans were new to the Confederacy, only discovered 50 years ago on a distant world called Kepler 186f. They were given the lowest rank in the alien society. Greg was used to being ignored, so he was surprised when a Varalian officer approached his table. "Lieutenant Sullivan," the officer said, "Admiral Zex Terra requests your presence on the bridge." When Greg arrived, the Admiral was studying more images from the planet. "Sullivan," she said without looking up, "have you ever seen structures like these?" Greg looked at the screen and felt a strange chill. The buildings looked oddly familiar, though he had never seen anything like them before. One tall, pointed monument especially caught his eye. "No, Admiral," he said. "But—" he hesitated. "Speak freely, Lieutenant." "They look, I don't know how to explain it. They feel like something I should know." Zex Terra's large purple eyes narrowed. "Interesting. You will join the landing party." 3 hours later, Greg stood on the planet's surface, breathing air that smelled of dust and age. The ruins stretched for miles in every direction. Once, this had been a huge city. Now nature had reclaimed most of it. Trees grew through broken streets, and vines covered crumbling walls. The scout leader, a Varalian named Kirvosh, pointed to a half-buried entrance leading underground. "Energy readings are coming from below," he said. "We need to go down." The team carefully made their way into the dark passage. Their lights showed walls covered with faded writing. Greg found himself drawn to these markings. Though he couldn't read them, they seemed strangely familiar. Deep underground, they entered a large room filled with metal boxes and screens. Everything was covered in dust. Kirvosh brushed off one of the panels, revealing buttons and symbols. "These ruins are older than the Confederacy itself," he said with awe in his voice. "Who could have built this?" As Greg helped clear away more dust, his hand passed over a metal plate. There was a symbol on it, a circle of stars surrounding 2 crossed branches. Below it, barely readable, were words in a language no one in the room should have been able to read. Yet Greg found himself whispering the words without knowing how he knew them. "United States Space Command." Everyone turned to look at him. "What did you say?" Zex Terra asked. Greg stared at his hand, then at the symbol. "I don't know. The words just came to me." Zex Terra's communicator beeped. "Admiral," came an excited voice. "We found something. A room with bodies." "Bodies?" she asked. "Yes, preserved in some kind of clear cases. And Admiral, they look exactly like Lieutenant Sullivan." The room with the preserved bodies was cold and quiet. Greg stared at the clear cases, his heart beating fast. Inside each case was a person who looked human. They wore dark blue uniforms with patches similar to the symbol he had recognized earlier. "How is this possible?" he whispered. Admiral Zex Terra moved slowly around the room, her 4 fingers touching one of the clear cases. "These beings look exactly like your species, Sullivan," she said. "Yet according to all our records, humans evolved on Kepler 186f, not on this planet." Greg couldn't look away from the faces. They seemed to be sleeping, not dead. Who were they? A science team arrived the next day. Dr. Alan Monroe was the leader, one of the few humans allowed to be a scientist in the Confederacy. His assistant, Linda Porter, came with him. Linda had red hair and green eyes that grew wide when she saw the preserved bodies. "These preservation cases are amazing," she said, scanning them with her tools. "The technology is far beyond what we use today." Dr. Monroe nodded. The bodies show no decay. They might have been here for millions of years, yet they look like they could wake up at any moment. Back on the surface, more Varelian ships landed. They set up a large camp around the ruins. Workers began digging in different places, looking for more underground rooms. Greg was assigned to help Linda catalog all the things they found. They worked in a room filled with strange devices and machines covered in dust. "Look at this," Linda called, holding up a small flat rectangle. "It seems like some kind of communication device." Greg took it from her. The rectangle was made of metal and glass. When he touched it, it suddenly lit up with a soft blue light. Both of them jumped back. "It still works," Linda gasped. After all this time, words appeared on the small screen. "DNA make cheese, kill road and firearmed. Welcome, Commander." Greg nearly dropped the device. It recognized me." Linda took it back carefully, but the light faded when she held it. When Greg touched it again, the blue light returned. "It only responds to you," she said. "This doesn't make sense." They brought the device to Dr. Monroe, who was studying symbols on a wall. He adjusted his glasses and frowned at the glowing rectangle. "This technology shouldn't exist," he said. "Not at the time these ruins were built, and it certainly shouldn't still be working." That night, Greg couldn't sleep. He lay in his tent, thinking about the bodies, the symbols, and the device that had recognized him. Why did everything feel so familiar? Why did the technology respond to him? He got up and walked through the quiet camp. Most of the Varelians were sleeping. Only a few guards watched the area. Greg slipped past them and entered the main ruin site. The underground passages were dark, but he found he knew the way without a light. His feet seemed to remember a path his mind didn't know. He went deeper than they had explored before, down metal stairs that hadn't been used in ages. At the bottom, he found a door. It was made of thick metal and had no handle. On the wall beside it was a small screen with a handprint outline. Without thinking, Greg placed his hand on the screen. "DNA verification complete," said a voice from nowhere. "Well, see you mean back. Commander, so you alive in." The heavy door slid open with a hiss. Light flooded the hallway as hidden systems came to life. Inside was a large round room filled with screens and control panels. Maps of stars covered the walls. In the center stood a table that lit up as Greg approached. The table showed a 3D image of the galaxy. One spot was marked in red, this planet. Hundreds of other spots were marked in blue, scattered across the galaxy. "Earth Command Center activated," announced the voice. "Diaspora protocolo el status dormant, awaiting instructions." Greg stared at the word on the screen. Earth. Something deep inside him responded to that word. "Sullivan." Admiral Zextera's angry voice came from behind him. She stood in the doorway with 4 armed guards. "What have you done?" Before Greg could answer, all the screens in the room flashed red. "Warning. VARALIN. Presence DTT. Security protocols ENJGD. Red lights flashed as alarms blared throughout the command center. The door suddenly slammed shut, trapping Greg and the Varelians inside. "What did you activate?" Admiral Zex Terra demanded, her skin changing to a dark purple color that showed her anger. "I don't know," Greg said honestly. "I just followed a feeling." A soft humming sound filled the room as a figure appeared in the center of the command table. It was made of light, shaped like a human woman in a uniform similar to those on the preserved bodies. Holographic interface activated, the light woman said in a clear voice. "Threat assessment in progress." Zex Terra stepped back, her guards raising their weapons. "Please identify yourself," the hologram said, looking directly at Greg. "I'm Lieutenant Greg Sullivan," he answered, his voice shaking. The hologram tilted her head. "Genetic profile confirms Sullivan lineage. Welcome, descendant of Commander John Sullivan, Earth Defense Force." "Earth Defense Force," Greg repeated. "What is Earth?" The hologram looked surprised. "Earth is this planet, your homeworld, the cradle of humanity." A heavy silence filled the room. Greg felt like the floor was moving under his feet. "That's not possible. Humans come from Kepler 186f. The Varelians discovered us there 50 years ago." The hologram's expression changed to one of concern. "Accessing historical records. This is most disturbing. The Diaspora Protocol was never meant to erase complete knowledge of Earth from human memory." Zex Terra stepped forward. "You will explain this immediately." The hologram ignored her, focusing on Greg. "I am ARIA, Advanced Records and Information Archive. I was created to preserve human history and knowledge. According to my records, humans evolved on Earth over 300,000 years ago. By the year 2150, they had colonized the solar system. By 2300, they had developed faster than light travel and begun colonizing other star systems." The room filled with images showing human history, ancient cities, early spacecraft, and finally large ships that looked nothing like Varelian vessels but were clearly advanced. "This is propaganda," Zex Terra said. "Lies. Lie detection systems indicate the Admiral is being deceptive," Araya stated flatly. Greg's mind was spinning. If humans came from Earth and were so advanced, what happened? Why don't we remember any of this? Araya's face became sad. Approximately 50,000 years ago, Earth faced a threat it could not defeat directly, an alien force from beyond the galaxy. Project Diaspora was created as humanity's last hope. Humans were sent to hidden colonies throughout the galaxy. Their technology was hidden or destroyed. Their memories of Earth were suppressed. Why? Greg asked. To hide. To survive. To wait until the enemy believed humans were extinct. Then, when the time was right, the knowledge would be restored and humanity would rise again. Greg looked at the star map, with its hundreds of blue dots. Those are all human colonies. Yes, all waiting for the signal to awaken. Linda and Dr. Monroe suddenly appeared at a side door that had opened silently. They rushed in, followed by more Varelian guards. "Greg, we've been looking everywhere for you," Linda said. Then she saw the hologram and stopped. "What is that?" Before anyone could answer, Zex Terra spoke into her communicator. "This is Admiral Zex Terra. Lock down the entire site. No one leaves, especially the humans." Dr. Monroe stepped forward. "Admiral, what's happening?" "These humans have found something dangerous," she replied. "Something that threatens the entire Confederacy." "We've found the truth," Greg said quietly. "Humans didn't evolve on Kepler 186f. We came from here. From Earth." Dr. Monroe shook his head. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Linda pointed to the hologram and the images floating around the room. "Look at the technology. Look at the star maps. The Varelians have been lying to us. Not just to you," Araya added. "To everyone. There are 27 species in what you call the Confederacy. According to my records, at least 23 of them had achieved space travel before Virelian contact. Zexterra's face hardened. This facility must be destroyed immediately. These lies cannot spread. They aren't lies, Greg said firmly. Deep down, you know that. What did the Virelians really do to all these species? To humans? The Admiral didn't answer, but her silence told them everything. Admiral Zexterra's guards surrounded the humans, their weapons ready. The red warning lights continued to flash throughout the command center. Take them to the ship, Zexterra ordered, and shut down this facility. One guard moved toward the central control panel, but Aria's hologram raised her hand. Warning: unauthorized access detected. Defense systems activated. Suddenly, the guard was thrown backward by an invisible force. He hit the wall hard and slid to the floor. This facility is protected, Aria said calmly. Only those with human DNA may control these systems. Zexterra's eyes narrowed. Sullivan, tell this machine to stand down. Greg looked at Linda and Dr. Monroe, then back at the Admiral. Not until you tell us the truth. What did the Virelians do to humanity? To all the other species? The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Finally, she spoke in a quiet voice. It was before my time. Long before. The old records say the Virelian ships found Earth 45,000 years ago. Humans had many colonies then, but they were divided, fighting among themselves. The Virelian High Command saw an opportunity. An opportunity for what? Linda asked. Conquest, Aria answered for her. My records show Virelian ships attacking Earth colonies, but then the records stop. The Diaspora Protocol was activated, but something went wrong. Dr. Monroe sat heavily in a chair. So the Virelians attacked humanity when we were at our peak, and somehow they won. Zexterra looked away. The official history says we found broken, primitive species and helped them. Guided them. That is what all Virelians are taught. But it's a lie, Greg said. You didn't help anyone. You conquered them, then erased their history and made them forget what they once were. At that moment, a new voice came from Zexterra's communicator. Admiral, this is Science Director Vrilnax. We found more underground rooms. There's technology here unlike anything we've seen before. And weapons, Admiral. Advanced weapons. Destroy it all, she commanded. Nothing leaves this planet. Greg looked at the star map with its hundreds of blue dots. Those are all human colonies, all waiting for some kind of signal. Yes, Aria confirmed. Each colony has hidden bunkers like this one, with preserved technology and data. When the awakening signal is sent, all dormant systems will activate. Linda stepped closer to the map. There are so many, spread across the entire galaxy. The perfect hiding strategy, Dr. Monroe whispered. Hide in plain sight, but forget who you are so you can't reveal yourself by accident. We need to send that signal, Greg said firmly. Zexterra moved quickly, pressing her weapon against Greg's head. You will do no such thing. The Confederacy has had peace for thousands of years. Peace built on lies, Linda said, on stolen histories and forgotten identities. It's still peace, the Admiral insisted. Do you know what would happen if all these species suddenly remembered their true past? The chaos? The wars of revenge. Before anyone could answer, the entire facility shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. What was that? Dr. Monroe asked. Aria's hologram flickered. Orbital bombardment detected. Virelian ships are firing on this location. Greg stared at Zexterra in shock. You're trying to destroy everything. The High Command gave the order, she said, lowering her weapon slightly. They believe it's too dangerous to let this information spread. Another explosion rocked the facility, stronger this time. Parts of the ceiling began to collapse. Facility damage at 30%, Aria reported. Activating emergency protocols. Suddenly, a section of the wall slid open, revealing a hidden passage. This way, Araya said. To the emergency bunker. It can withstand the bombardment. Greg looked at Linda and Dr. Monroe, then at Sextera, who stood frozen in indecision. Come with us, Greg said to her. Help us find the truth. The Admiral hesitated as another explosion shook the room. Choose quickly, Araya warned. The passage will seal in 30 seconds. Another explosion rocked the facility. Pieces of ceiling crashed down just feet away from where they stood. 10 seconds until passage seal, Araya announced. Admiral Sextera looked at her guards, then at Greg. Her 4 eyes blinked rapidly as she made her decision. Go, she told Greg and the other humans. I cannot join you, but I will delay the others. Greg nodded. Thank you. He grabbed Linda's hand and pulled her toward the passage. Dr. Monroe followed closely behind. They slipped through the opening just as it began to close. What about the Admiral? Linda asked as they ran down a narrow metal corridor. She made her choice, Greg said. The passage led deep underground. Lights turned on automatically as they moved forward. After several minutes of running, they reached a large circular room filled with strange machines. Welcome to Emergency Bunker 7, Araya's voice said from speakers in the walls. Her hologram appeared in the center of the room. This facility is designed to withstand any attack. Dr. Monroe looked around in wonder. What is all this equipment? Transportation systems, communication arrays, and defense networks, Araya explained. All built by humans, thousands of years ago. Linda walked to a large screen showing the surface above. Varelian ships continued to bomb the area around the ruins. They're destroying everything. Not everything, Greg said. Araya, you mentioned an awakening signal. Can we send it from here? The hologram nodded. This bunker contains a backup transmitter. However, the signal requires authorization from at least 3 human DNA signatures of command rank. Greg touched his chest. I have Sullivan DNA. Does that count? Yes. Your genetic line carries command authorization. What about us? Linda asked. Araya scanned them both. Dr. Monroe carries the genetic markers of the science division, not command level. Linda Porter's DNA shows command level authorization through maternal lineage. That's 2, Greg said. We need 1 more. The bunker shook as another explosion hit, stronger than before. Facility damage at 60%, Araya reported. The bunker remains secure, but all surface structures are lost. Linda pointed to another screen. Look, some of the Varelian ships are leaving. Indeed, several of the crystal-like vessels were rising into the atmosphere. They think they've destroyed everything, Dr. Monroe said. They don't know about this bunker. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. Motion detected in access tunnel, Araya announced. 1 life form approaching. They turned toward the entrance, expecting Varelian soldiers. Instead, a single figure stumbled in, bleeding and burned. It was a human man in a Varelian uniform. Sam. Greg rushed forward to help the injured man. Sam Carter. What are you doing here? Sam was another human liaison officer from the Varelian fleet. His face was covered in soot and blood. They're killing everyone, he gasped as Greg helped him to a chair. All the humans. The Admiral tried to stop them, but Science Director Vril Max took control. He said we know too much now. Linda gave him water from a dispenser on the wall. The Varelians are killing their own human crew members. Sam nodded weakly. They called it containment protocol. I only escaped because... He paused, looking confused. I don't know how I found this place. I just felt like I knew where to go. Araya scanned him. Samuel Carter. DNA verification complete. Command level authorization confirmed. Greg looked at Linda, then at Sam. That's 3. We can send the signal now. What signal? Sam asked. The one that will wake up humanity, Greg said. And every other species the Varelians lied to. Dr. Monroe stepped forward. Wait. Think about what the Admiral said. This could cause chaos throughout the galaxy. Wars. Millions could die. Greg looked troubled. But can we hide the truth? Now that we know it. Perhaps there is another way, Araya suggested. The awakening signal has multiple settings. It can be sent gradually, allowing for a controlled awakening. How would that work? Linda asked. Instead of full activation of all sites at once, we begin with knowledge transfer only. Let humans remember who they are first, before awakening the technology. Greg nodded slowly. That sounds better. Less dangerous. Araya guided them to 3 different control panels. Each of you must place your hand on a scanner and state your intention to activate the signal. As they moved to their positions, the bunker shook again. Hurry, Dr. Monroe urged. They might find us soon. Greg placed his hand on the cool surface of the scanner. For Earth, he said quietly. For the truth. Greg, Linda, and Sam placed their hands on the 3 scanners. Each panel lit up with a soft blue glow. Authorization accepted, Araya announced. Preparing awakening signal. A large screen on the wall showed a map of the galaxy. Hundreds of blue dots began to pulse with light. Each dot represents a human outpost. Araya explained. Some are small, with only a few thousand people. Others are entire colonies with millions. All those people don't know who they really are, Linda said softly. Dr. Monroe watched with wide eyes. And they're about to remember. Signal configuration complete, Araya said. Knowledge transfer only. Technology activation locked until further notice. Greg took a deep breath. Send it. A wave of light spread across the map, moving from their location outward. As it touched each blue dot, the color changed to green. Signal transmission successful, Araya reported. Knowledge packets downloading to dormant systems across the galaxy. How long until people start to remember? Sam asked. The process is gradual, Araya replied. Dreams first, then fragments of memory. Full awareness may take several days. Suddenly, the bunker's alarms blared again. Multiple Varelian vessels returning to orbit, Araya announced. They have detected the signal transmission. On another screen, they could see Varelian ships turning back toward the planet. Can they stop the signal? Dr. Monroe asked. No, the transmission is complete, but they can destroy this facility and anyone inside it. Greg looked at the others. We need to get out of here. Where would we go? Linda asked. The surface is crawling with Varelian troops. Araya's hologram walked to a wall that slid open to reveal a small chamber. This is a transport pod. It can take you to the nearest backup facility, 200 miles from here. What's at this backup facility? Sam asked. Ships, Araya said simply. Human ships. They all stared at her. You mean spaceships? Greg asked. Araya nodded. Preservation hangar contains 3 vessels capable of interstellar travel. All were hidden before the Varelian invasion. The bunker shook violently as new explosions hit the surface. Bunker integrity at 80%, Araya warned. You must leave now. They quickly moved toward the transport pod. It was small, with just enough room for 4 people. Wait, Greg said, turning back to Araya. What about you? Can we download you or something? I exist in multiple locations, she replied. My program will activate at the backup facility when you arrive. As they climbed into the pod, Dr. Monroe paused. What about all the humans on Varelian ships? The ones like Sam who escaped? Araya's expression was serious. The signal reaches everywhere. Even humans on Varelian vessels will begin to remember. Some may find ways to access hidden systems on those ships. What do you mean? Linda asked. Human engineers built backdoors into many technologies. As memories return, some will remember how to use them. The bunker shook again, harder this time. Bunker integrity at 65%. Araya warned. Immediate departure recommended. They squeezed into the pod, and the door sealed behind them. Hold on. Aria's voice said from a speaker. This will be uncomfortable. The pod shot forward with incredible speed, pushing them back against their seats. They raced through a tunnel that seemed to go on forever. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, humans began to dream. On countless worlds, in Varelian colonies and ships, people woke with tears in their eyes, not knowing why. Some drew pictures of a blue-green planet they had never seen. Others found themselves speaking words in languages they didn't know. On a small mining colony in a distant system, a woman named Kate woke from a dream about stars. She walked to her window and looked up at the night sky. Earth, she whispered, the word feeling both strange and familiar on her tongue. In a Varelian classroom, a human teacher stopped in the middle of a lesson, his mind suddenly filled with images of tall buildings and flying machines. In the highest offices of the Varelian Confederacy, alarms began to sound. Reports flooded in from across their territory. Something was happening to the humans, something that couldn't be stopped. The awakening had begun. The transport pod slowed as it reached the end of the long tunnel. With a soft hiss, the door opened, and Greg, Linda, Sam, and Dr. Monroe stepped out into a vast underground chamber. Welcome to Preservation Hangar Echo. Aria's voice greeted them. Her hologram appeared before them, just as it had in the bunker. They stood in amazement. The hangar was enormous, with high ceilings and bright lights. But what took their breath away were the 3 ships resting in the center of the room. They were sleek and silver, unlike the crystal designs of Varelian vessels. Each one was about the size of a small building. These are human ships, Linda whispered. Yes, Aria confirmed. Battle cruiser-class vessels with full defensive and offensive capabilities. They have been preserved in stasis for 50,000 years, waiting for this moment. Greg walked toward the nearest ship. It had the same symbol he had recognized earlier, a circle of stars with crossed branches. Above it were the words Earth Fleet. Can we fly them? He asked. The ships respond to human DNA and command authorization. You 3 have already been verified. Sam touched the smooth metal of the ship. Where would we go? The Varelian High Command must be stopped, Aria said. They are already moving to contain the awakening. Reports indicate they are arresting humans throughout Confederate space. Dr. Monroe shook his head. 3 ships against the entire Varelian fleet. That's suicide. These vessels possess technology far beyond current Varelian capabilities, Aria explained, and you will not be fighting alone. She waved her hand, and a new map appeared. All across the galaxy, green dots were flashing. Other preservation sites are activating. More ships are being prepared. And there is something else you should know. Aria's expression became serious. The Diaspora Protocol included a final measure. Human engineers built hidden systems into many technologies they shared with other species. As humans remember, they can activate these backdoors. What kind of backdoors? Greg asked. Some can disable Varelian weapons. Others can lock navigation systems. They were designed as a last resort, a way for humanity to regain control without massive bloodshed. Linda looked troubled. This could still lead to war. There is risk, Aria acknowledged. But there is also hope. Not all Varelians support the lies of their leaders. Admiral Zexterra was not the only one who questioned the official history. As if on cue, a communication alert sounded. Aria waved her hand, and Admiral Zexterra's face appeared on a screen. She looked injured but alive. Sullivan, can you hear me? She called. Admiral, Greg said with surprise. You survived. Barely. I've taken control of my ship. There are others like me, other captains who believe the High Command has gone too far. We're jamming their communications, trying to prevent them from arresting more humans. You're helping us? Linda asked, shocked. Zexterra nodded. The Confederacy was built on lies, but it doesn't have to stay that way. Many of us want peace, real peace, not one built on forgotten histories and stolen identities. Greg looked at the others. then back at the Admiral. What do you suggest? The High Council is meeting on Viral Prime. They're planning a full suppression campaign. If we can reach them, show them the truth, there's a chance to stop this without more violence. Greg turned to Araya. How fast are these ships? With ancient human drive technology, you could reach Viral Prime in 6 hours. Dr. Monroe stepped forward. This is bigger than just humans. All 27 species deserve to know their true history. Greg nodded and placed his hand on the ship's access panel. It lit up immediately, recognizing his DNA. Then let's go tell them, he said as the ship's entrance opened with a soft whir. Across the galaxy, the awakening continued to spread. Humans remembered who they were, where they came from. Ancient technologies hidden for millennia began to activate, and on dozens of worlds, other species began to question the histories they had been taught. The Varelians had ruled the stars until they found human ruins. Now, as Greg and his companions boarded the ancient Earth vessel, a new chapter in galactic history was about to begin. The stars would never be the same again.